Starting things off with a live look at London this morning as King Charles and Queen Camilla are now heading to Buckingham Palace following the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. Now, he's expected to address the nation in a televised address later today, but as you can see, cars are stopped all along the highway there as the new king and queen are heading to Buckingham Palace to start their government under King Charles's name. Such a sad morning for him, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here on Up with Krim. I'm Channing Curtis.
And I'm Tim Pham. We'll get more into the Queen's passing in just a moment, but we do want to get you up to date on your Friday morning forecast with meteorologist Thomas Patrick, because we are seeing some red flag warnings, Thomas, that you're tracking. You're also tracking air quality. Did it improve since yesterday?
Yeah, since yesterday here in Spokane, much improved overall. Still generally hazy conditions, but not near as much of a saturation of that wildfire smoke as of this morning. So our air quality is back into that moderate stage, which is acceptable. It's when it starts getting into that unhealthy for sensitive groups and outright unhealthy. That's when we notice it a lot more. And we'll probably be right between those yellow and orange categories. Moderate or worse for some areas this morning. And the red flag warnings result as a result of some breezy conditions expected later today. But boy, is it cold out there for some areas. There's a few spots in the 30s, as you see in Pullman, Deer Park, and St. Mary's. It's also 41 in Coeur d'Alene and Sandpoint. Would not be surprised to see some locations, especially at some lower elevations underneath that temperature inversion, also in the 40s around the Spokane or Spokane Valley area. Otherwise, the airport is reporting 53 degrees at the moment. But you can generally see a little bit of some hazy conditions. The sun hasn't quite come up over the horizon yet, so it's just illuminating some of that wildfire smoke, making it seem almost more cloudy than it actually is. But once the sun gets above the haze, that'll start to make a big difference. So about an hour or so after sunrise, we'll start to see those temperatures climb fairly quickly. But it will stay in the 50s through about 9 a.m., getting up into the upper 70s for today.
In just the last hour, a gun salute was held in Hyde Park as well as at different stations all over England honoring Queen Elizabeth II. 96 rounds were fired, marking each year of her life. The UK is waking up to its first full day without Queen Elizabeth on the throne.
Queen Elizabeth II died yesterday morning at Balmoral Castle, her summer home in Scotland. So we're taking a live look right now at King Charles's arrival to London. He is set to meet with the Prime Minister before his live address later this morning.
Now, again, as King Charles is now heading into Buckingham Palace, you can imagine he only had hours really to grieve his mother before he has to set up his own government and actually go ahead with his own royal duties. Now the nation will begin what will be a nearly 2-week period of mourning. Flags all over the country are at half-staff, including in Washington, D.C., to honor the longest reigning British monarch. The only monarch that most people in Britain have ever known, spending 70 years on the throne. Elizabeth was on the throne as the UK rebuilt from war, lost an empire, and both joined and exited the European Union.
It was already a time of transition in the country. The Queen ruled through 15 prime ministers, from Winston Churchill to the newly elected Liz Truss. Queen Elizabeth swore in Britain's new prime minister actually just 3 days ago.
The death of Her Majesty the Queen is a huge shock to the nation and to the world. Queen Elizabeth II was the rock on which modern Britain was built. Our country has grown and flourished under her reign. Britain is the great country it is today because of her.
Now again, the Queen's oldest child, Charles, is now King Charles III. He's expected to give a televised address today at 10 a.m. our time.
So he released his first statement as king yesterday, saying, "The death of my beloved mother, Her Majesty the Queen, is the moment of the greatest sadness for me and all members of my family. We mourn profoundly the passing of a cherished sovereign and a much-loved mother. I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms, and the Commonwealth, and by countless people around the world. During this period of mourning and change, my family and I will be comforted and sustained by our knowledge of the respect and deep affection in which the Queen was so widely held." President Joe Biden also sending his condolences to the royal family.
Now, he met with the Queen for the first time as president just last year. The president, along with First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, visited the British Embassy in Washington to sign a condolence book for Queen Elizabeth.
I just stopped by the British Embassy to sign the condolence book in her honor. I had the opportunity to meet her before she passed, and she was an incredibly gracious and decent woman. And the thoughts and prayers of the American people are with the people of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth in their grief.
President Biden also added that he looks forward to continuing a close friendship with the royal family now that Charles has become king.
Multiple events are planned for the day. Earlier this morning, church bells rang across the country in commemoration of the Queen, including a gun salute that began at London's Hyde Park and other locations across the country. Then at 10 a.m. our time, there will be a service of remembrance at St. Paul's Cathedral. At that same time, King Charles will make his first televised address to the nation. A date for the Queen's funeral has yet to be announced by Buckingham Palace.
Now, as we learn more about the services that are planned for Queen Elizabeth II, you can take a look back on her life and her legacy. All you have to do is text the word Queen to our number 509-448-2000, and we'll send you a link to our online coverage. Switching gears now, as of this morning, vaccine mandates in Washington state are coming to an end. Governor Inslee now says that all COVID emergency orders will expire by the end of October.
So that means vaccine mandates for healthcare workers and educators will end unless an employer requires them. However, most state workers will still be required to get a vaccine as a condition of employment. Inslee says in 2 years, technology has changed and his approach to the virus has changed as well. Under the state's management, Inslee says most state employees will still need to be vaccinated.
And the vaccine still remains a very important thing. And we are able to do this as a manager. We're the management. So this is not done on the emergency order. It's done just because we're the employer. And the employer gets to make decisions in collaboration with the workers that keep them safe.
Governor Inslee and health leaders made it a point that removing these emergency orders does not mean COVID-19 is no longer a threat in the country or state. Inslee says Washington is moving into another phase of the pandemic response, which includes rolling back these final emergency orders.
Now, this morning, people who lost their jobs because of the mandates are speaking out. Several City of Spokane employees lost their jobs due to the mandate, including more than 24 firefighters. Now, they say there's potential that they could get their jobs back since Governor Inslee's emergency orders and state of emergency expire in October.
I would love to go back to it. I had planned on working another 7.5 years.
The City of Spokane says they lost over 24 firefighters to resignation, retirement, and being laid off, meaning that the ones that were still employed had to work more hours. That resulted in an estimated more than $7 million worth of overtime pay. City spokesperson Brian Coddington shared a statement addressing potential implications for Spokane yesterday. He says, quote, "We'll evaluate today's announcement to be sure there's a clear understanding about potential impacts to city operations."
It's 6:09. Let's take a look at your morning rush. More news in less time. The Spokane County Sheriff's Office is asking for your help identifying a body found in the Spokane River. Take a look. These are depictions of tattoos found on the body as well as wristbands. One tattoo is a woman's face and what deputies are describing as a sombrero-style hat. The other tattoo is writing with some surrounding art. Anyone with information is asked to contact authorities at the number there on your screen. The man suspected of setting fire to a Spokane church last year changed his plea to guilty. 23-year-old Rio Mirabal pleaded guilty to setting a fire in March of 2021. The St. Charles School and its administrative offices were heavily damaged. Court documents we obtained show his change was not part of a plea deal. Mirabal's sentencing is set for December. Former Gonzaga basketball star and current Washington Wizards forward Corey Kispert just got engaged. He poked some fun at the sports world during his announcement on Instagram. In his story, he wrote, "Breaking, Kispert signs lifelong contract per sources. Terms of the deal include love, happiness, and taking a true hottie off the market." And that's a look at your morning rush.